tonight and also for having come to the open house earlier. We appreciate your presence tonight and thank you so much for your support. This time I'd like to call our meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. The due and proper public notifications of this meeting have been given. As is our custom, I will invite board members and members of the audience to rise for the moment of silence, to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Board Member David Gregg.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the board members that are here, and also would take note that board member E.J. McGyver is joining us via computer. And we thank you for making the special effort in your convalescence to be with us tonight. This time I'd like to draw board members' attention to tonight's agenda, and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All right, that's moved and seconded. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Thank you. And now I'll call on Ms. Pam Little McDaniel for tonight's awards and recognitions.
Thank you, Chairman Stewart. The 2023 Florence 1 Schools Vocal Stars were selected by two panels of judges. Round 1 auditions determined the 3 best elementary, middle, and high school singers from across Florence 1 schools. Round 2 auditions were held at the Southside Middle School auditorium and were judged by the principal of Carver Elementary, Ms. Josie Little, who is the 2022 Administrator Vocal Star, Mr. Cole Davis of Mayo High School, and a veteran of the Florence Little Theater, as well as Mr. Dennis Davis, a radio personality at iHeartRadio. The 3 winners each received trophies and will receive a $250 prize. We are proud to honor the 3 winners this evening. First, the elementary winner, Miriam Welsh, Carver Elementary. And Miriam's parents are here. Would you raise your hands? Let's give them a round of applause. And another round for Miriam Welsh. Another round of applause, please. Now, our middle school winner is Peyton Daniels from John W. Moore. Now, Peyton cannot be with us this evening as she is involved in another award ceremony at her school. But again, the elementary vocal star for Florence 1 Schools is Peyton Daniels. Give her a round of applause in her absence. And finally, we are recognizing the high school winner, and her name is Maria Evans, and she's a student at Wilson High School. Okay. And Maria has family members here. Her dad. Let's give Dad a round of applause. And also we'd like to thank Dr. Eric Figueres for all of his hard work in organizing the Florence One Schools Vocal Stars program. Thank you very much. Mr. Stewart, that ends our recognition.
Thank you, and once more, congratulations to our students. At this time, I will move in the agenda to public participation. We have 2 cards that have been submitted. As a board, when we receive comments, we do not respond pursuant to policy. And we ask that the comments not involve confidential issues involving students. We're obligated to keep such matters confidential, so we don't engage in or receive personnel matters, but rather the comments are related to issues. Let's see, got 3 cards, so I will recognize those. First, Lanika Shelley Williams, if you would come to the podium.
Good evening.
Can you?
I'm here again. I just wanted to follow up, just to, okay, so, height challenged. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I am here again. I was here last month, not sure if you guys remember. I just wanted to follow up because I did not receive a phone call or email or letter in the mail or even a pigeon or something to follow up with the things that I addressed in my issues that myself and my children are having. And I would like to extend again the invitation to let you guys know whenever the time is convenient for you all that you guys want to meet. Let me know the date and time, and we can, I can present all of the proof to back up the allegations that I am stating, so that way we can move forward. I would like to move forward. I don't want to take, I think the ignoring is how we came from a small problem, and the problem just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I would like to get this resolved so that we all can move forward and, we can all have some closure here. So that is the purpose of me being here. You guys are aware through email as well as me, obviously, again, physically being here last month to state my issues that myself and my children have been experiencing. So I guess I'll see you guys next month if I don't hear from anyone, a postcard or anything, or just to meet up and see when we can resolve this. I just don't want the problem to keep getting bigger and bigger, and the ignoring, me not addressing it is just creating a bigger problem. But I appreciate you guys' time and the time for listening to me, and you guys have a great evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, recognize Caroline Timmons. Thank you.
Hey, good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
Caroline Timmons. I'm a speech pathologist. I graduated from USC with honors, and I have 2 children in Florence School District 1. They both attend school currently. My oldest child was attacked in school 3 or 4 years ago, sustained a concussion. We had to go to the ER. We had several visits to a neurologist. He had to be homeschooled, and he was attacked in a bathroom. His head was slammed into the wall from behind. They never found out what child did it. Because of this, we had to keep him home, and then we switched to schools, and he would scream and cry every day when I took him to school. And it broke my heart. I don't know if I did the right thing. So then we had to put him in Pampago, and then he told me he wasn't going to school anymore. He just stayed home, and he's going to school at home now, and he works full-time while he's getting his degree. So my issues with this school district are the bathrooms. We're still using communal bathrooms during this day and age when these kids are getting attacked in the bathrooms. And since him being attacked, several other children have been attacked. I've seen videos of it on Facebook. Kids end up in the hospitals. And this issue probably should have been addressed a long time ago. These children shouldn't be going to communal bathrooms. They say words that they shouldn't be saying that wouldn't be said in the classroom. They're beating each other up. They can do whatever they want. The bathroom should be individual with one commode and one sink. There should be a monitor, whether it be the people at the front desk, the bathrooms are down at front, they should have a key, go to the bathroom, come back out. These kids getting concussions and beat up in the bathroom is unexcusable. They're not being monitored. My other child had a fight start in the bathroom. He never punched the kid, never threw a punch, defended himself. He's out. I've given you some paperwork to look over, and I asked it be overturned. The Lord said, it's not a sin to ask. Ask and you shall receive. I'm asking you to review that paperwork. My child is an honor student. He was inducted to the IB program. He's in the beta program. He's declined the IB program because he does not want to go to Wilson. He's been on the football team at South Florence High School. He's never had an infraction on him at all. He's never been in trouble. This kid's never had a fight with anybody. He's never fought with his brother. He's never raised his fist. I don't think the rules that this school is following is proper for these children. An infraction like this when my child hasn't done anything out of line. He's never said a mean thing to this kid. And I actually watched the video. I hope you take the time to watch it. My kid is still smiling, but he will not turn and walk away and leave somebody behind him because he saw what his brother had. So I just
Thank
ask
you.
that you look at the paperwork.
Thank you. All right, now next, I recognize Ashley Smith.
Good afternoon.
Evening.
My name is Ashley Smith. I have a 6th grader that went to Southside Middle School. During this year, she had a traumatic event happen in her life and caused her to start having issues at school. Long story short, she got in an altercation with the little girl at the school that pushed her and started the altercation. And my child defended herself. There was really no security there. The little girl was the aggressor of the fight. And her and my daughter are now at the same alternative school and in some of the same classes. I've made this aware to the principal. I've made this aware to the superintendent's office that the child is still bothering my child at this alternative school now. My child has gotten 3 days out of school suspension. She tried to ask for help in the class to derail any altercation, and the teacher told her no. At that time, the kids started taunting, calling her names, and she defended herself. She didn't fight. She just had words with the little girl and the boy that was bothering her, and that got her 3 days out of school. My child's education has plummeted since she has went to Alfred Rush. And when I say plumage, I mean plumage, went down. That school is the Eastside High right now. There is no structure at that school, and the kids can do whatever they want to do, push with each other and play, and the principal says it's okay because nobody is fighting. But they can't do it at the regular school. They get in trouble or suspended. So my child, she has told teachers, told the principal about these kids taunting her. And there's a video now that this little girl and these little boys are taunting my child on the bus as well and in the auditorium waiting on the bus. She tried to tell these teachers in the auditorium to help her, but neither one did nothing the first time, nor the second time. My child is on the video crying, her eyes out, while nobody is helping her and these kids are taunting with her while she's moving away from this situation. And then she gets left by the bus because she went to go look for help from the principal because the teachers in there did nothing about this situation. My child has suicidal thoughts and thoughts of committing harm to herself, and she goes to therapy now due to, like I said, the traumatic event from last year and due to this severeness bullying. My child is home now. She's been home since Thursday because of her safety. I've been to the board back to this since Monday for 3 months regarding this situation, and I have got the law enforcement called on me for concern regarding my child's safety. So all I ask for is somebody to help me, and I mean help me, try to figure out a way for my child to finish school and take her into the school year SE ready, because right now she's home with me doing nothing but the work I can give her. So I hope y'all hear my concerns, and here I'm just a concerned parent trying to save my child, not to be a statistic. That's all I'm asking for. Any help? I appreciate y'all time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again. At this time on the agenda, I will move to the superintendent's report. Dr. O'Malley.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Board members, in your packet is several items for the report. First is our state risk assessment. This is our fiscal risk assessment done on performance in the areas that are listed: required reporting, turnover of personnel, compliance, fiscal compliance, financial stability, quality of management systems. If you recall, almost 5 years ago, we were at 28, I believe, and under fiscal monitoring. So as you see in your report, we have now an overall risk score of 11. A perfect score is a 9. We are low risk. We've come a long way, and I think a lot of the processes and protocols that we put together financially and under the guidance of Ms. Shao, who will be here presenting most of the evening later on, and I think this goes to her department and as well as her to put this district in good financial compliance. So I wanted to share that with you this evening first. The second item is the Jewel settlement. If you recall, this board agreed to authorize law firm to enter into the lawsuit regarding our Jewel settlement. That offer has been concluded and the lawsuit has been settled. In your packet, you will see how the money was allocated, and our total amount was $377,034. As you know how all this works, after attorney fees and all those other fees, the school district will net $274,869 regarding this settlement. And you can see that the larger the school district, the more money they receive. So when you're in the lawsuit with school districts like Los Angeles County and Miami-Dade, that's why the numbers are so high. So we've included there, I've included our claim and when we could expect some of that money. I think some of that will be put towards our vape detectors that we currently have. But it is a problem, and I will say that, although this was settled, it is a major problem across this country for students, young people, regarding vaping. And although this lawsuit is settled, we're stuck with the after effects in our communities with this. But we'll put this money towards that prevention and programs to try to help with those vaping and juul issues that we see all across, not only our community, but across the country. The next item on there is our procurement audit that we do annually. Michelle, if you would just introduce our auditor, and that is also, the presentation is in your packet for board members.
Good evening. I'd like to introduce Brian Nicholson. He is the senior manager with Muldens and Jenkins, who is the auditing firm that actually prepared and reviewed the audit, procurement audit this year.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Chairman, Dr. O'Malley. If you go to the first page, just a brief agenda. I'll go over the engagement team, the results of the 2022 procurement agreed upon procedures, procedures that were performed with various findings, and then we'll have any comments, recommendations, any questions.
You just make sure you speak into this. So
Let me move this.
thank you.
So just a little bit about our firm. So I'm with Malden & Jenkins. We're actually based out of Columbia. And Tim Lyons, the engagement partner, could not be here tonight. His son actually had a Little League game that he's coaching. So, but my name is Brian Nicholson. I was the senior manager for the procurement audit. I was also the senior manager involved with the 2022 fiscal audit as well. Results of the 2022 procurement audit. We conducted our engagement in accordance with attestation standards established by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. What that means is we were not engaged to and did not conduct an examination or review engagement to which the objective would be the expression of an opinion, conclusion, and respectively on the district's compliance with the procurement code. Accordingly, we do not express an opinion or conclusion on the district's compliance with the procurement code. Independent accounts report on applying agreed upon procedures. The district has acknowledged that the procedures performed by our firm met the appropriate purpose of assisting users in assessing and determining the district's compliance with the procurement code. And if you turn the page, these are just an outline of the various areas that we, compliance areas that we looked at. We looked at the general control procedures, code compliance, sole source, emergency and trade-in procurements, as well as compliance with supplies and services and IT consultants, surplus property and compliance as far as it relates to construction, architect, engineer, and other related services. And y'all should have all received a copy of the report as well. Just to hit some highlights, the Minority Business Enterprise Utilization Annual Plan results, this was under the code compliance section. So we reviewed the Minority Business Enterprise Utilization Annual Plan, the MBE plan, to ensure annual plans were submitted timely and approved by the district, also to determine that periodic progress reports were filed timely, and to compare the goals versus actual results. And below you should see a snippet. The 10% of expended budget dollars were approximately $84.5 million, the goal being about 8.5, and actual results were $5 million, so under a deficit of 3.4, and then 5% of annual construction expense. Total construction expense was $25.6 million with a goal of 1.2. Actual was $3,046,000 with, so you exceeded that by $2.6 million. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even have it up for y'all to see that. So those are the results that I was just mentioning. On the next slide, this is just some required communications. We received full cooperation from the district management staff, particularly Ms. Laura and their team. We requested written representations from management relating to the accuracy and information provided to us. We received those representations. We also requested representation that there are no communications from regulatory agencies, internal auditors, or other independent practitioners or consultants relating to the district's compliance with the procurement code. We are independent, as is a requirement of our firm to the district. And this is just kind of informational. We do provide free client CPE. It is more financial based, but all board members are also welcome to attend. With that, any questions or comments? Anything in particular in the report that sticks out or y'all have any questions on?
Seeing none? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Last item under my report is Mr. Murray, if he is, oh, there he is to my right. Just for those of you, as he's working his way up, we wanted him to come to briefly, for those that were unable to make the ribbon cutting, to provide the community just a little bit of a summary of what they can expect here at the farm now that we've officially opened and ready to go. So welcome back to the microphone there, Mr. Murray. It's glad to have you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Malley and board members and Chairman Stewart. Thank you for allowing me the time to address the board. Today has been a very special day, something we have been working towards for years. I truly believe that the farm at Florence 1 will be the catalyst to provide so many new opportunities to the students of Florence 1. I want to publicly again thank Dr. O'Malley for his support and his faith in this project. His leadership has made all the difference in what we have been able to accomplish. Inside this building, as you can now see all around you, we have a pretty amazing facility. Thank you. Right behind me, we have the only teaching kitchen in our region, featuring individual student cook stations that can accommodate up to 32 students, as well as an island to be used by both culinary instructors and certified nutritionists for demonstration. Students will begin to learn these skills themselves in an environment similar to a residential kitchen. We think this is important because we want them to gain confidence in their skills and take what they learn in this amazing facility and share with their families at home. I personally have seen the excitement and have been witness to the joys that come out of these experiences multiple times at Briggs. Outside, if you have not had the opportunity to look, students will get their hands dirty growing plants in raised garden beds and a dual bay greenhouse with state-of-the-art hydroponic system. There will also be an outdoor teaching area with livestock enclosures. We have a cover crop that I, with the help of others, have already planted to bring that 4 acres back into a quality produce producing field. Students will be able to use that field in the future for test plots and projects such as turf management down the road. The farm at Florence 1 is not a Band-Aid to the issues of wellness, both physical and mental, that exist in our community, but it will have a profound impact on the health and well-being of our students and their families for generations. It will also help to remove the inherent stigma for those who desire to go into agricultural associated careers and elevate those career paths to a position of pride. 5 years from now, this is what I want you to envision. We will see high school ag education students conducting their classes here. Advantage Academy students from multiple disciplines will be here, working on turf management projects, culinary arts, a robust FFA program, which I have worked diligently trying to bring back to this school district, will be a role model for others across the state. We will have culinary classes, veterinary science classes, equine therapy with our neighbors that Stir It Up. I look forward to seeing the joy and wonder on our students' faces when they see their food go from seed to plate. There is really nothing like it. We also want to see the community involved here with 4-H meetings, summer camps, after-school programs. The local Beekeepers Association is meeting here presently. The success of this project depends on you. And I don't necessarily mean individually you, but you as the community and your support. This project is not solely a Florence 1 school facility, but a site that will be the epicenter for all things related to agriculture, sustainability, nutrition, environmental studies in our community. We are creating a legacy for our children and for future generations in Florence. Again, thank you for believing. Are there any questions?
Can I ask him a question?
Certainly.
Is he through?
You got the floor. Yep.
We hear you.
I see Doc shaking his head, and I don't hear nothing. Yes. Wait a minute, hold on.
We can hear it.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Let me ask you, Mr. Murray, a question. That was a beautiful presentation. Let me ask him about the STEM program and how can the project out here, the farm, utilize our STEM program? How you going to integrate that in?
The district has a STEM director coordinator, and I am open to working with him in any way, as I am open to working with any other program, both in district or across the entire state. I think there's a perfect fit here for STEM. I think we can even incorporate history into this site. Multiple disciplines can all come together here at this site. Anything that touches or comes closest to agriculture, agribusiness, science, technology, physics, nutrition, culinary arts can have a home here at the farm at Florence 1.
Okay, let me ask you this. How are the kids going to utilize their learning in our schools with science, technology, engineering, and math? What I'm saying is, how can they utilize the classroom work, what we're doing at the farm?
There is extensive curriculum that's approved and accredited by the National Farm Bureau Council that's online. There's also the National Farm to School Movement that has an entire curriculum that touches all of those subjects that you just mentioned.
Okay, last question on this one. Are we going to utilize the universities in South Carolina or in our area, well in South Carolina really, who has these kinds of programs that can utilize? Francis Marion has something, Clemson, South Carolina State. You're going to utilize their expertise in growing our farm?
I already am.
Oh, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much for your presentation tonight. In my conversations before we started tonight, I was remarking, I think along the same lines you've mentioned, that tonight we basically planted the flag, but there's so many opportunities and synergies possible, and I think you've articulated very well where this can lead to over the next 5 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Stewart, that concludes the superintendent's report.
And as we conclude that report, Dr. O'Malley, I would like to take note of the South Carolina Department of Education risk assessment and then also the procurement audit. And thank you and the team, the administrators, for turning the ship on those issues, getting an outstanding audit report, but then also bringing that risk assessment all the way down to 11. Thank you. I'd like to draw board members' attention to the agenda again, the action items, and if there's no objection, I would like to entertain a motion for approval of items 1 through 4, which would be approval of financial statements, approval of the minutes from our last meeting in April, approval of the personnel sheets before you and approval of the field trips.
So moved.
All right,
I'll second that. I have a question though.
all right, it's been moved and seconded, and I'll entertain questions or comment. Yes, sir.
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Last month, we approved the field trip. It was one for the Wilson High School and more. And what I wanted to know was the parents ever satisfied with the mode of transportation for our students to Atlanta? We approved it. I just wanted to know whether or not the parents were satisfied with the mode of transportation because there was a big controversy over that. To get the kids to back and forth to Atlanta.
I have not heard anything since the last time we spoke. I know the advisor was working on that along with the building principal. So, and that trip, I believe, if I recall, is in June. So we still have some time, but I can get an answer for you on that as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, it's been moved and seconded then for approval of those first, excuse me. Yes, ma'am.
Question. Wanted to ask Dr. O'Malley, the personnel, have we depleted a parenting program or anything? Is there a parenting program that has been depleted or been taken away?
It's hard to hear, so I mean,
One of our parenting programs, do we have a parenting program that we have depleted or gotten rid of, or how is that?
so the parenting program, are you talking
one of our
preschool or part of Title?
preschool.
We still have it, but we do not have it, the visitors to the home anymore. Those are not, but so we do have a parenting program, but we don't have those parenting visitors. I think that's maybe what you were referring to? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Not seeing any other hands. Again, the motion on the floor is approval of items 1 through 4. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. All right, thank you. Item 5 is second reading on the policies listed in the agenda. I am not going to read that alphabet, but this is second reading. We had discussion and presentation last month. I'll entertain a motion. Actually, it's coming from committee, my bad. The motion's on the floor from that committee. There's no second required. Are there any other questions or comments?
Did we get a second?
I'm not seeing any. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor would please say aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. Thank you. We'll next move to item 6, which is policies, another section of policies, first reading. And I will recognize our committee chair, Ms. Hung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So back in April, our committee met.
Yeah, speaking that mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Back in April, on the 24th, our committee met to review another large group of policies, beginning with the Paid Parental Leave Act, and then we incorporated numerous student health-related policies. And we were very fortunate to have our school nurse there with us who oversees the student health program and to gather her expertise on it. But at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our legal counsel, Ms. Kathy Mahoney, to go through the policies with us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chair, Dr. O'Malley, members of the board. You have before you mostly Section J policies, but the first policy you'll note at the top is GCCGD R2, and that's the paid parental leave, which this board started last year. And you all had a sentence at the top that basically said you were piloting it for a year. So the recommendation for the committee is simply to remove that sentence, and this just then becomes the policy. Now, the legislature is passing or has passed or is in the process of doing this right now. So there might be a tweak we need to bring back once we see what their final legislation is. But for right now, this at least makes it clear that y'all are moving into it, since currently it would have expired June 30th. So this just removes that and keeps it ongoing. Policy JLCC, and as Ms. Han mentioned, we did have the district's lead nurse, and her name is escaping me right now, but she was instrumental in giving us lots of great guidance to the committee. So JLCC is the Communicable Infectious Diseases Policy. It just updates sort of how the district handles any students who have issues that present themselves and how to navigate that within the school setting. JLCD is assisting students with medicines and their healthcare needs, and this policy is heavily driven by state law. This is currently, there are statutes that are very specific to this, and this just basically updates a lot of that language for students' individual healthcare plans and structures when RNs and LPNs assist students. There's a regulation that goes with it that, again, is very detailed and towards the individual healthcare plans, but your lead nurse for the district has made sure that all of these regulations and procedures are entirely consistent to the detail with how you all do things in the district. So it's a whole new regulation there, updating to make everything consistent with what you all do. And again, consistent with both what the district does as well as what the state law provides. There are some forms associated with it that you all have your own forms in the district, so there's no need to have forms in board policy. So the recommendation was to remove 2 of those forms. Policy JLCDA is use of, I'm just going to say EpiPens because there's a much longer word I can't pronounce. But this again is, there was a law some time ago for safe access to basically the EpiPens. And so this policy just implements exactly what the law requires for that. JLCE is first aid and emergency care. And there are minor tweaks here to be consistent with how you handle when you have to call some emergency medical services to a school for either an employee or a student. JLCEF is concussions in student athletes. This policy, again, is based on a law that's very specific that the legislature passed several years ago about how to handle concussions. Very minor tweaks to the policy itself. And the administrative rule is just updating some of the provisions, again, to be consistent with both what the law requires as well as what our procedures are. And there are a couple forms there that are not needed because you all have your own forms and they change from time to time. So rather than having it in board policy, you would be removing that from that. JLCF is school nurses. This policy is really fairly well up to date. There were updates made to the references to the policy primarily. JLDBB is a suicide prevention policy. You all have had that in place, so it was just a minor tweak of that, and also that, again, is based on a law as well. JLDBD, substance abuse counseling, is not needed because that's covered elsewhere. JLF is student welfare, and that's a policy that requires all the reporting procedures when there's any concern of any potential abuse or neglect with students. Just updates the policies, again, making it consistent with state law. JLIB is dismissal of students. This is just making some updates to make it consistent with your procedures for student dismissal. Now, JK is student fees, fines, and charges. This is just some updates tweaked to make it consistent with the law about how you charge student fees, consistent with law. And then JRA and JRA-R are extensively long, but they're basically your policy on student records and administrative rule on student records. And it's just updating all the language consistent primarily with the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which is the federal law that governs student confidentiality. And it just puts all the detail and steps when you have to review educational records, when you get them requested, when they transfer, et cetera. It just puts all those procedures in place. So that concludes the batch the committee looked at the last meeting. Happy to answer any questions.
I would certainly commend the committee process. As you made mention, the committee utilized the expertise of the district head nurse, Beth Holzbach. And of course, with the legal expertise, I've been pleased with the process of policy review that's been taking place systematically throughout the year and prior to this year as well. So thank you and the committee for that. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
My question is about the suicide prevention part of it. I missed that. What policies we have to address suicide prevention?
So you have policy JLDBB, and you all have had that policy in effect since 2012, and that is consistent with the Jason Flatt Act, which was about youth suicide prevention and training. All this did was modified really the title of the policy to focus on the suicide prevention. And then the district has programs to implement this, but the policy y'all have had in effect now for more than 10 years, and your policy was solid. So minor tweak on that one, but it's consistent with the law.
Thank you. I thought you were going to list the policies we have, but that's probably taking too long. Because we talked about this years ago, and the Jason Flatt situation, I'm going to take that course. It's about a 4-week course. But we have some other situations that are a little bit deeper that we had in our policy about that suicide prevention. And I don't know if we utilized all of that or not. And it came back when I came from Mississippi, back with an idea. I was wondering if it was that in the policy. I need to look at it again. I really do. But I think we need to be very serious about that because of the situations that our kids are under right now. And all the teachers are required to take that Jason Flatt program. The one thing, I think not all of them, not the elementary teachers, but the high school and middle school teachers, is that in the policy? Is that required?
The policy says the superintendent will ensure implementation of the required training for individuals employed in elementary, middle, or high school. So yes, it applies to all schools. And you're right, it is a very serious issue for school districts across the country. And your policy is very consistent with what the law expects.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Stated that was first reading. Certainly take a look at those. They will come back up in June for second reading. At this time, I'll recognize Dr. O'Malley for the item 7, which is the 2023-2024 budget first reading presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. I will call up Ms. Shao to the podium. Actually, Ms. Shao will do items 7, 8, 9, and 10. But the first item she'll cover is the 2023 and 24 budget under first reading. Good evening. Welcome to the farm.
Yes, good evening. It was very appropriate that we were going to have it at the farm, and I was going to be the majority of your presentation this evening. I said they're going to egg me to get me off. So I will try to be brief but informative. And again, it is my pleasure to be here to present the 23-24 proposed general fund budget for the first reading. I am proud to say this will be my 4th budget presentation to this board, so I always look forward to this every year. So with that, the title I think is important for us to understand and absorb, and the board has been very supportive of building and doing great things in this district. And as we're standing here tonight in an accomplishment, I think the title of the budget kind of goes along with where we've been and where we're going. So today's the opportunity to build the tomorrow. So we have the agenda here. We're going to talk about the funding formula, some revenue highlights, projections, expenditure highlights, give you an overview of expenditures by object, disclose some millage data to you, and then just wrap up with some basic highlights before we move on to questions. So we talk about education funding. Last year, instead of being placed under the law, it was placed as a budget proviso in the governor's budget. It is remaining as a budget proviso again this year. The formula is remaining the same as last year, which means the ratio remains 11-8. The pay funding is still at the teacher salary scale, master's 12 years of experience. The funding is 75% state funded, 25% local funded. So what you'll see here is a graph that actually breaks down. The blue is the state funded, that is to represent 75%. The orange is the local funds that are to represent the 25%. Interesting enough, if you actually do the calculation, you'll see that the blue actually represents about 79% funding. And the reason for that is for this year, they have rolled what used to be issued as state funds to other funds into the general fund. So again, as they start to meld the pot together, they will add more money, but the funding split, they're just throwing money that they used to put in a different pot into this pot. So it looks like we're getting more, but we're really not. They're just putting it into a different pot of money. But to the right-hand side, as you'll continue to see, the increase in state funding is going 4.27%. It's going from $3,193,000, and the expenditures are an increase of $3,193,000. But the increase in local funding, when we look at what happened last year for local funding to this year, it's a 6.42%. But to go from last year to this year, we're going 11.97. So you're saying, well, the state's percentage is staying the same, their growth. They are funding their growth. What they're not funding, and what we will continue to see compounded, is when they give the teachers a pay raise, they are only funding 75% of that. Every year, we have to fund the 25%. That 25% gets compounded annually. So they say, well, we're going to grow this much, but from a district standpoint, we grow more. So we grow more because of the compounding, but we also grow more because our population, and the next slide actually goes into this, we have 1,220 staff members that are being paid on the teacher salary scale as defined by the state. 574 of them, or 47%, are paid above what the state funds us, which means we have to come up with more than the 25% because they're only funding 75% of a minimum. We have 16 individuals that hold a doctorate degree, which means we're funding more than 25% at the local level. We have 518 that hold a master's degree with more than 12 years of experience in this district. 26% hold a bachelor's degree plus 18 credits, and 14 hold a bachelor's degree with equal than or greater than 20 years of experience, which means they exceed a master's 12 on the pay scale. So all of this, 47% of our teacher population has to be funded with local dollars because the state doesn't fund that. They're funding at a level below. So again, as we continue to talk about how districts are penalized, we're penalized for having educated educators and experienced educators. So as we're spending our local tax dollars, this is a priority that we have made in order to best educate our students. The education funding that's come into the state aid for classrooms, again, the funding formula this year remains the same. However, I told you they added 2 components. The funding they've put to the general fund this year is for the guidance career specialist. That used to be allocated differently. And the PE teachers. Again, those used to be issued in separate pots of money. They've combined those into the general fund this year. They are also, when we're talking about that pot of money, they have told us that this year we are in a hold harmless situation, which means exactly what we got this year in 23, we will get next year for 24. The district received $754,460 for those career guidance specialists and $112,350 for the PE teachers. So we will continue to see that money this year. So that's that 4% growth you're seeing in that general fund dollars there. Teacher supply checks this year will increase from $300 to $350. Again, that is strictly state pass-through money. That is nothing that the local dollars fund. So as we talk about the budgeted revenue highlights, I think it is important to really recap many of these highlights. We're starting this year proposing a $190 million budget with a tax increase of 6.7 mils for general operations. This increase, it actually represents about an 8.4 increase. It's 14.8 million from the 22-23 budget. We break that down into 6.7 million as increased in property tax revenue generation, 5.7 million in state educational funding increase, and 2.4 million in the state property tax relief funding, Tier 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 and 2 were frozen by Act 388. Tier 3 is sales and use tax, and that's where we're actually seeing the growth of the $2.4 million. The $5.7 million increase in state funding is primarily related to the additional $261 million that you hear the state touting that they are funding education with that's coming from their surplus. The $261 million is actually allocated across all school districts within the state of South Carolina based upon a proportional share, which is student-based. The $2.4 million, again, as I stated, is the Tier 3, based upon sales and use tax collected by the state. We continue to see growth in that. The $6.7 million increase in tax revenue is a combination of $3.8 million related to commercial and residential growth occurring within our school district boundaries. And then the 6.71 mils is actually generating an additional $2.9 million for us to have a balanced budget this year. Miscellaneous revenue growth of $455,000 is related to interest earnings as the district participates in the local government investment pool. So as the state has a wealth of cash right now to invest, and they're making those investments, we get a share based upon how much cash of ours they are actually investing. So we're seeing a substantial growth in that right now, which is really good. We are anticipating that we see that for next year as well. We do have a transfer decrease of $534,000, and that is related to the reduced indirect cost for the ESSER programs. As we continue to spend that ESSER money, we will have less funds that we can charge what they call an administrative or an indirect cost to. So here are the revenue projections compared to the current year budget versus the recommended budget. You'll see that that 6.7 that I previously discussed is the increase in taxes, the miscellaneous revenues for the interest, education funding, and then the Tier 3 and your transfers. So again, we're looking at about an 8.4. We were at 175 million last year. We're going to 190 million this year. Breaking down what it looks like in a pie chart, taxes are funding 49.4% of this district's operations. State revenues are funding 47.75%. Transfers from other funds, which are your indirect costs, are 2.5%. And then the miscellaneous revenue is less than 0.5%. As we talk about expenditure highlights, again, as board policy states, South Carolina law also includes that we have to adopt a balanced budget. So we are planning to spend $190 million. That supports 32 district facilities within this district, 16,000 students, and 2,067 general fund positions. This district does have 2,311 positions, but only 2,067 positions are funded out of the general fund. The difference, they're either funded out of Medicaid, funded out of other federal programs. So as we look at the $14.8 million increase, we are looking at $9.4 million of that increase relates to the personal services and fringe benefits. As you all have probably heard and read, the state has approved a $2,500 plus a 1 year of experience step increase for the teachers. So we have included that in our budget. Bus drivers are to get a 25% increase. That is 5% as they are considered a state employee, and then the 20% that the State Department of Ed requested in their budget. That puts our drivers at a starting rate of $15.26 in this district, which I believe will make us very competitive to hopefully hire more bus drivers and be able to minimize the number of double or even triple routes some of our bus drivers are running today. We are doing $2,500 plus 1 year of experience for all other staff within the district, except for 3 classifications, and I'll talk about those individually. It's the classroom assistants, data operators, and assistant principals. So again, in trying to keep everybody consistent within the district, we are offering the $2,500 plus the 1 year is what we are making the proposal for acceptance. Classroom assistants, we are actually adjusting their salary scale to start at a minimum of $15 an hour. If they are special needs, they will move to $15.60 an hour as starting, and then they increment 2% in hourly rate every 3 years. Every 3 years. We feel this is important in order to be competitive in the market here. Plus 90%, and you'll see us a little later as a statistic, but I think, again, it's important to reiterate, 90% of these individuals live within Florence, right here in our own community. So, again, as we have to remain competitive and want to keep these individuals that serve such a critical job, we feel moving that to $15 an hour is important. Our data managers, those individuals will be moved to an annual salary of $30,000 for elementary, $33,000 for the middle school, and $36,000 for high school. Again, these are the individuals that are entering the data into Power School that generate the funding for our district. So when we talk about that student-teacher ratio, if I don't get students counted correctly, then I get less funding. So these are critical members to our team, and what they do on a day-in, day-out basis is very important. Assistant principals, another area that we haven't directly addressed in a salary scale adjustment. We are going to do a $5,000 across-the-board increase for all assistant principals. We have a 1% employer increase in the retirement rate contribution. We have a 3.7% increase in employer health insurance. As we talk about other line items, again, I want to highlight of the 14.8, 9.4 related to everything I just discussed. So this is the smaller section, although very important to support operations. Contracted services are going to go up $3.6 million. The reason for the large jump here, we have been funding our custodial contract under the ESSER money. We need to now bring that back into the general fund. We have a new contractor that the board has approved. For next year, that contract's $2.4 million. We have $752,000 for special needs students as they relate to nursing, occupational therapy, physical therapy, other special needs that they have that we have to contract out with people. $118,000 for tuition enrollment for dual enrollment. As of last year, the state stopped funding dual enrollment. There was no additional weighted factor put in the funding formula, and again, they have not brought dual enrollment funding back, but we do have a large participation in that program with our students and continue to see it as a benefit to this district to allow that, so we are going to continue to fund that and expand that. $217,000 in an increase in city and county school resource officer contracts. That kind of speaks to itself. Another market that's hard to hire, so as they need to do things to get those individuals, those costs are of course passed on to the district. $113,000 in an increase in other contract services. This is where we do printing for our student agendas, formative assessment materials that are all required by the law that we actually have to do for our students. Utility increase, we're asking to increase the budget $798,000 here as a result of a 3.6% rate increase for Duke Energy. Other operating increases of $721,000. $328,000 is for software renewals. Again, that was something that we did pay for under ESSER. Those were new softwares. We feel that there is a necessity to continue those for the learning of our students. $200,000 for property insurance increase. We ask what makes that go up? Adding the farm. So every time we do something wonderful, it also hits the pocketbook. $193,000 for maintenance and repairs and general supplies. Transfers out, we're increasing that $325,000 or $320,000, and the reason for that is the pay rate and fringe costs related to the nurses that are currently paid out of the Medicaid fund. Medicaid does not reimburse us 100%, so therefore the general fund has to make that up, and because we are giving pay raises, even if they're funded in a different fund outside of the general fund, we make sure everybody is maintained consistent throughout the district. Here's your expenditure just as a quick glance as I've gone through those changes in the current budget versus the proposed budget. As you see, almost 86% of our expenditures do occur in that personal service salary fringe line. It's the business that we're in. We look down and we see that 5.3% for contracted services. Keep in mind that is direct student services in many cases, and of course the custodial contract. So the big question, why do we need a millage increase? Why haven't we pinched every dollar? Why haven't we looked for other means of funding? Why haven't we looked at what we could cut? We were operating on a bare bones, but we've had certain things that have been mandated to us that we can't control. The 1% retirement increase. I can't go to PEBA and negotiate that. The 3.7% in a health insurance rate increase. I can't go to PEBA and negotiate that. They're set statewide. So when I've already pinched every penny to balance last year's budget and I have mandated changes, I have to find a way to fund that. And we do that through tax revenues, through generation of miscellaneous revenues. And so as we're looking here today, the South Carolina Department of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs does state that by law we are allowed annually to increase the operating millage for the district. We can increase it this year. There's a formula. It's your CPI growth plus your population growth. Revenue and Fiscal Affairs has determined that the CPI growth this year was 8%. And there was population growth within Florence School District 1 of 5.2. So we could increase 13.2% or 27.28 mils. But as you see, we're only asking for 6.7 because we've managed to budget what we feel is only necessary, and we've managed to negotiate all costs to the best interest in this district. Each mill that we raise actually generates $435,000 in tax revenue. Again, as I spoke, that 1% retirement increase is going to cost this district $1,092,769, or 2.5 mils. The 3.7% increase in health insurance premiums, that's going to cost us $1,032,809, or 2.37 mils. That utility rate increase, 3.6%, the $798,173 is 1.83 mils. So for those unfunded mandates that have been passed on to us, we're asking for a millage increase of 6.71% in order to pay those. That would make your operating millage increase from 206.64 mils to 213.35 mils. With the 213.35 mils, Florence School District 1, out of all the Florence school districts, still has the lowest operating millage. As we talk about where our revenue growth, because as I presented the revenues, we did have some revenue growth because we've got commercial growth. We have some residential growth. People see that in the community. Well, what's the school district doing with that money? We have taken that money, and that's the money that we're funding that classroom assistant going from $15 and $15.60. If we were to associate that to a millage, that costs this district 4.81 mils, okay? Or $2,091,967. Again, 90% of those people live right here. With a pay raise, they give back to the community through purchasing, through participation with their children, and things of that nature. 25% of the teacher's salary and fringe, of course, is the mandated portion of the state. That this year is $3.7 million, or 8.58 mils. The balance of the $1,448,000 relates to pay increases for the remainder of staff, your custodians, your maintenance workers, school and district management, administrative staff. There's actually, and as well as your bus drivers, there's a total of 501 employees that will be supported by that $1.4 million there. So I think, again, what we have done is we have taken our local tax dollars when we have seen growth, and we have put it to the resources that we see that are a direct contribution to students. It's your teachers, your classroom assistants, and those individuals. This is what the millage has looked like over the last 13 years. So you see that from 2010 to 2015, on a steady growth of a little bit each year. Then from 15 to 17, we were stagnant. 2018, we moved up to the 206.64, and that's where this district has remained for the last 4 years. As we know, as the CPI showed it an 8% growth, and we all feel it everywhere we go, costs are increasing everywhere. Our costs are increasing. As we say, how will our constituents, how will the people in our community be impacted by that 6.71 mils that we're asking for the increase? If you're an owner-occupied, and I just want to highlight here that an assessed value does not equal market value. So in our minds, I don't want somebody to say, well, I can put my house on the market for $500,000. Well, that might be what you can put it on the market for, but it may be assessed at only $400,000. So assessed base does not equal market base, okay? Assessed base is determined by the county. So if you have a house that is actually assessed at $150,000 for that year, for the 6.71, you would see a $40.26 increase in your tax bill. If your house is assessed at $250,000, you would see a $67.10. And again, if you're $350,000 assessed-based home, $93.94. If it is your second property, you are assessed at a 6% assessment rate, not a 4. So your bill would be $60.39 for $150,000. If you are a business and your business is assessed at $1.4 million, your tax bill increase is going to be $1,000.15. Also, with a millage increase, it does affect vehicle taxes. So if your vehicle is valued at $20,000, your tax bill is going to go up $10.74. $30,000 is going to go up $16.10, and if you have a valued vehicle at $50,000, that'll be $26.84. So again, if somebody asks, what's that going to do to me? Hopefully in this you can actually see, and again, I would be willing to work with any board member if they would like to know a specific. So we talk about some other highlights. This is where the fund balance has been with the district. In fiscal year 18, we ended in the general fund with $40 million as a fund balance. We ended 19, $45 million. Then in 20, we had a deep dip. Again, that's when we hit COVID. Some things changed. We also had revenue collections that did not meet target as it related to tax revenues. So then we regrouped and we started to grow our fund balance again, and we've been adding about 1.4 to 1.6 million every year. So we're ending this year at $41 million for fiscal year 22. Another thing that hits our bottom line are tax abatements. And I thought it was important to show the graph this way. Instead of, going vertical, let's go horizontal here. And the district does not have a voice at the table when economic development with the county or the city are working with potential companies coming into the area. And although we want growth and we want to support it, having a voice at the table would allow us to at least express when they abate or waive what they call a fee in lieu, Instead of giving somebody that 8%, when I was talking on the previous slide, how much if somebody owned a business, by raising their taxes, what would that do? Well, what they do is they say, well, we're not going to charge you the tax rate, but we're going to charge you a flat rate. They negotiate something less. Well, that's really what they call a tax abatement. That person, that business is not paying what everybody else would be paying as they're trying to contribute towards the growth, and they also contribute in other ways as well. However, as you can see, for last year, this continues to grow as we have economic development going on within the district. We are abating $18 million in taxes. So, again, we love economic development. We want it. We just want a voice at the table so that we can try to help. What does that tax abatement look like? Because as we get these manufacturing companies, let's take the battery company that's coming in, they're going to be paying good wages. They're probably going to be bringing in younger employees, younger families. What happens? We're going to need a school. We're going to need teachers. But if they've abated my taxes, how do I fund that? What happens? So again, it's not that we don't want it, but we're going to incur some costs. We all hear that they want to, you'll talk about your counties, they want to do an infrastructure for roads and things of that. As population grows and developers, they want to put an impact tax on developers. Well, again, taxes are how we as a school district operate. We get state funding, we get taxes. So as we need and continue to grow, we'll have to serve our students and that money, again, a voice at the table. So $18 million. I will wrap up. Questions, comments?
On our health insurance is only 3.7, as you put here. Wasn't that like 10% or 9% a couple of years ago?
18.1 last year.
18.1,
Yes.
so it's only 3.7.
Correct.
The 1% for retirement, that continues to go up till we reach a certain amount.
This is the last year under the current proposed law, so it would not increase anymore unless they actually do a restabilization of the retirement plan, but we have met the cap this year.
So we're at, what is that cap? What percentage?
We're at 20, going into next year's budget, we will be at 23.81% as an
I knew
employer
over the last 9
contribution.
years I've been on the board, is something that we were targeting and hoping to get to.
That's correct.
So
The
we
state-
finally arrived at the.
Yes, the state did this as a stabilization plan for the retirement plan because it was underfunded. So they were increasing employee contribution rates up to 9%. That's been capped for the last 3 years. And then they've been increasing the employer's rate 1% each year until we reach the 23.81. It was suspended 1 year due to COVID, which is why we're really in year 6 of a 5-year law.
Question. When you mentioned increasing millage, I think the last time we tried that, I think we got to involve the community a little bit more and involve also our PR department to sell this. That's going to be a difficult task right now. So what plans do you have for us to move forward with that plan on increasing the millage?
If
You have some innovative ideas on how to do that.
Chairman Porter is going to speak to that.
Yeah, this is operating budget. This is not seeking a capital millage referendum increase. This is the operational side.
Oh, okay, thank you. Also, I just left the upstate today, and I ran into some doctors up there, and they were talking about in Greenwood, they have what they call the Greenwood problem. And I called the office today to see if we could possibly look at that situation. What it is basically is they guarantee every student, I'm just looking for where to get the money from. Every student in Greenwood County, if you start in the first grade in Greenwood and you get to the 12th grade, you are guaranteed 2 years in the of education. I guess they use the, I don't know how they do the formula, but they use the tech centers, I believe, for this process. And it seems to work and everybody's excited. Is this a possibility? Well, first, before I put that in, let me ask, have we come up with any innovation ways to raise more revenue? Besides, I heard a lot of it from you, but have we raised any other innovations or thought about them to raise more revenue for us? And the reason I mention this is because I'm not sure that the budget was signed, another budget was signed by the governor that would affect us in a lot of ways. And that's 3-4 questions in one. So let's start with the governor's proposal. How would that affect us in the long term?
That budget is the budget that contains the unfunded mandates. That is saying that the 1% retirement increase, the 3.7% health insurance increase, and then we have to fund the 25% of the master's 12 years of experience pay raise that they are giving. So that's how his budget directly impacts what revenues we have to generate in order to fund those new items that are being placed upon the district this year.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I muted myself. The innovative ways of raising funds for our district. You proposed some ideas. Are any of those ideas in effect right now?
Yes, we are continuing to use the local government investment pool to generate more interest earnings, as we feel that being part of a pool allows us a broader market for investments. We have started to, again, rent out some district facilities that brings in additional miscellaneous revenue. And we also are looking to, really, again, we get funded by state money and local taxes. So to generate money, we don't have the ability to produce something or produce more and sell it. So what we have to do is look, what expenses can we cut?
Question then was, can the finance department or our district personnel can come up with ways that, some innovative ways that no other district has ever thought about in order to generate more revenue, will give us more money for our teachers, our aides, etc. And we thought about the long term and trying to get more money into our district some kind of way that may be different from any other district that you can think of. By the way, you've done a great job in the presentation too, but I'm just adding that just to...
We can certainly take a look and continue to sharpen our pencils. I would like to think that my tireless nights and weekends of trying to make sure that I have squeezed a penny to create 2 cents of value. But again, it doesn't hurt to take a second look, and I surely can do that.
I appreciate that, and we don't want you to be killing yourself doing it, but you can also involve the board, in helping you too. I'll try to come up with some ideas myself, and hopefully, I just want our district to be the best that we can, with what, and you're a very good financial person, and the way you come to make your presentation is very effective, and also it people probably on the state level sell us to them in the community here in Florence. Sometimes it's hard to convince the people local that what we're trying to do, even though they should go to our community. So that those innovations get them involved. And I don't have any answers. I just have a lot of questions. So I just want to thank you so much for answering my questions. And I want to thank you for your presentation as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'd like to make a brief comment or observation. Also thank you and Dr. O'Malley and our team that studies and oversees this. I expressed appreciation earlier with regard to the audit that was presented to us tonight, and also with the risk assessment, and all of those things are tied together, are they not? I mean, all of this deals with the finances and the overview and the planning and the hours that goes into that. And as we connect these dots during your presentation, it struck me that over the last 12 years, 6 of those years, there were no increases in operational millages, none the last 4 years. But as another slide pointed out, we are personnel driven. And given the changes that come with the state budget that impact how the local budget has to be spent, it's just remarkable how that trickles in. And we don't get to control that. Even with record state revenues coming in, it's interesting that the pressures nonetheless continue because of the way that it impacts and as it grows over the years, as you've alluded to. It's also interesting, another slide, that even with the excitement of the economic development that we're seeing in the area, and it's critical and it's essential, but the way economic development has to be pursued is of necessity, unfortunately, the path of abatements that you've mentioned. That's universal. If you don't do those things, you don't get that growth. And that's the cost, I'm afraid, of doing business. And I think as you've done in your presentation, you've provided a clear-eyed, realistic view of what that means and how it actually works. With growth comes responsibility, in other words. It costs. The other cost, which is a good cost, is we want high-quality teachers and educators in this area. We know that with our administration and through the leadership that's provided at the table, that we've started our last several school years with no vacancies. So we've been able to attract and retain the quality instructors and support personnel that are necessary for us to offer the excellent education programs typified by this new venue that we've cut the ribbon for tonight. But of the personnel, as you showed, given the state formula, it costs us more because fortunately we have so many employees that are so well qualified that they're above that blue line standard that the state has set. So yes, we want to keep those employees, and yes, it's going to cost us also. So I certainly understand what you presented. I certainly see that it's all going towards attracting and keeping and maintaining the quality personnel that we have in a very challenging profession and in a very challenging labor market nationwide, not only in education but across the board in these last couple of years. So thank you for the clarity. Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Dr. O'Malley?
With no comments, we will have the second reading and the public hearing in June, and that's when an opportunity to have final passage of the budget. Thank you, Ms. Shao. As always, I appreciate the well thought out presentation. That was clear. With that said, we'll move on to item number 8, which is the sale of district property.
Yes, this is an opportunity for some revenue growth. So the state did pass a budget proviso last year that it is proviso 1.113 and states that for any school district that had not used a school district building for direct student instruction for 4 years or more was mandated to place it on our website for transfer, free to any other governmental entity. We did comply with that budget proviso, and we placed it on our website for transfer. And the building that we're actually talking about here is the property that is located in Timmonsville. It is designated as the Pickney property. So that has not been used by the Florence School District 4 for many years for direct student services. Again, the address for that is the 220 North Pickney Street. So with that, in order to comply with this, the next step was to state that by December 31st, if it was not transferred, we had to seek an independent appraisal, and we have to place that property now up for sale. So our next step here is the board does have in their packet the appraisal that was done. It was determined by the appraiser that it is really land value only. The appraisal is anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000. So the next steps for the board would be to agree to put that property up for sale, to be in compliant with the budget proviso, and then what would you like to set that sale price at based upon the appraisal. So those are kind of next steps, but this is the information so that we continue to remain compliant with that budget proviso.
Okay. So if we could pause there then, based on the information that's been provided, we have the legal mandate that liquidation of that property, that particular property, needs to occur. The appraisal has been done. It would be proper to, for me to entertain a motion then to authorize the sale of this property within the parameters of the appraised value.
So moved.
All right, it's moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I just wanted you, when you said transfer, making it clear that you did put it up and nothing came through for the transfer, right? So that's why you had to put it up.
That is
So
correct.
the citizens, I'm just kind of asking, the citizens were aware of it, maybe from the transfer, or are they not aware of it maybe going
It was
up?
placed on the district's website. There was no public communication or, an ad placed in the paper or anything of that, but it was placed as front and center on our district website for that time period through September 30th, that it was available for a transfer to any other governmental entity.
Right. I'm just making sure that it's clear that, so whenever it's out there, that the citizens can say, it was up there, that they knew this, okay? That's what I'm saying. I understand it, but I want to make clear that if they're listening or they're seeing this or it goes out, that it was on the website.
And it actually still is on our website. Until we take next steps, it is still posted.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, so hearing no other, the motion's been made and seconded. I'll entertain the vote. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Thank you. Dr. O'Malley.
We'll move on to item number 9, hazardous bus routes for the 2023-24 school year. Ms. Shao, do you need to take a drink real quick for the next one?
I'm used to rolling on,
All right.
so I got it. So anyhow, last year, we brought to the board, in order to be compliant with state law, section 5967 420B, which states that we do not have to transport any student that is within 1.5 miles to their home. If we choose to, then the state can actually bill us for the mileage related to utilizing the state buses. So what we do every year, we work with transportation staff and our routing staff, and we determine if there are hazardous routes within that 1.5 miles. Hazardous routes consist of no safe walking path, meaning no sidewalk. They have to cross a 4-lane highway. There's no safe crossings to those schools. So what we have done, again, we've reevaluated to make sure there haven't been infrastructure changes in our school district areas. So those hazardous routes that were presented to you last year still remain as hazardous routes. What you see is new this year. We have added Brockington because last year when it was presented, we weren't in consolidation at that time. So Brockington has been determined that 1.5 miles within that complex is a hazardous area because there are no safe walk zones. There are no sidewalks, no safe crossing zones. So again, we will continue to transport all students within that 1.5 mile school zone. And then we also, last year, Board Member Townsend had asked the question about Del May. And there's a triangle area that's between West Palmetto, Second Loop, and Holly Circle. That was not on the original map that we showed you. However, it was deemed hazardous. It was submitted to the state as a hazardous route due to the heavily traveled road and the busy intersections, because Celebration is that 4-lane road right there to get to the school. So all we did this year is actually added that, but operationally, we were already transporting those students. But again, we wanted to be clear that it is listed here on the hazardous route for the board to approve. So again, the only two changes is we've added Brockington due to consolidation, and then we have added that triangle area in which operationally we were already supporting. There are no other changes. Again, we did review infrastructure to make sure there were no sidewalks, no crossing paths, no relocation of any schools.
All right, so board members, I'm informed that those routes would require board approval. So based on the presentation and the information in the packet, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, moved and seconded. Any questions or comments to our presenter? All right, hearing none, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you. And one more time, Dr. O'Malley.
One more time, Ms. Shao, item number 10, fund balance distribution. We're going to ask the board for a distribution from fund balance. I'll ask Ms. Shao. Again, it's in your packet under item number 10.
Yes, what you have in your packet is fund balance compliance. We are required to maintain compliance with the South Carolina Department of Education policy, which is 1 month or 8.33% of your average 2 fiscal years of expenditures. The district also has a best practice board policy that says that we will maintain 2 months or 17% of the current year budget, including transfers. So as you see, the excess over the South Carolina Department of Ed policy, as of 7/1/22, we have $32 million in fund balance that is in excess of that requirement. For the district fund balance policy, we have $14 million that are in excess of that. It is time for us to renew our Chromebook refresh for our high schools. If the board will recall, we actually did this in 3 increments. You'll do high school, elementary, and middle, and it is a 3-year cycle. So the high school Chromebooks has come up, and we are asking to use $2,376,369 of fund balance in the current fiscal year in order to purchase that first stage of refresh.
All right, thank you. So that request then coming on the floor would require board action. You've heard the presentation seeking expenditure of those funds from the fund balance in the amount of $2,376,369. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept this recommendation.
All right, moved and seconded. Any questions?
I did have one question. The Chromebooks that proposed to be turned in, is there any refund we could get for? I know they're 3 years old. Is there any refund we could get for those, or sell them to another school district, maybe?
I'll speak briefly, but Kyle and I, Mr. Jones and I did speak to that. We will get money, again, until those are turned back in from the students and we actually see what condition they are in. That will actually go to fund, we will set that money aside. It will go to fund the elementary refresh. So it's kind of, as we turn in this set, whatever we get kind of helps fund the next set. We turn in the next set, so it's kind of some rolling funding. But because high school was our first purchase, we don't have anything we're turning in to kind of offset this initial purchase.
But we should get something in return for what we're getting.
Yes,
should-
we will.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Good question. All right, motion is on the floor, been seconded. No other questions? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Thank you. All right, those are the action. Indeed, thank you very much. Go get your, take a break. That concludes the action items for this evening. You'll note from the agenda that there will be need for an executive session. We would go into executive session to discuss student appeals in receipt of legal advice regarding a court order pursuant to the policy listed there, and then also receipt of legal advice on the board policy JEB and student appeals. In executive session, only discussion will take place. If any action is to be taken, we'll do that upon return into open session. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. You're in recess and we're not. We're going to retire and we'll be back after those discussions. session to discuss the matters that were announced. Those discussions took place. No action was taken. I'll entertain a motion to come back into open session. Moved and
Second.
seconded. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, so the first matter, not in the order printed, but with regard to executive session item B, receipt of legal advice regarding the court order and the policy listed there. I would offer the following motion. Move that after reviewing the court order in CA number 2022-CP-21-02500 and relevant documentation, and discussing the matter with legal counsel, the board finds that the individual requesting an appeal by or to this board is not an employee of the district and is not entitled to protections under board policy GCQA/GCQB, instructional staff / administrative staff reduction in force, close paren, and further move that the appeal be denied as the district has no obligation to the individual for employment. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Unless there's any discussion, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. It's unanimous. Next, item C of the executive session discussion was a receipt of legal advice on board policy JEB and student appeals. I'd like to offer the following motion. Move that the board grant the request made on behalf of the parents of two students that the board waive the age requirements in board policy JEB and approve their enrollment consistent with state law. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. All right, and finally, the board had before it student appeals. Those are in your packets. There were 5. As is our custom, we won't refer to the students by name, but simply by number in the order that they appear in your packet. So with regard to those, I would offer as a motion that the board uphold the hearing officer with regard to students 1, 3, and 5. I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded that the board uphold and affirm the decision of the hearing officer in appeals 1, 3, and 5. Moved and seconded. Those in favor would please say aye. Aye. Opposed, likewise. Would move with regard to appeals, or excuse me, let me do those separately. With regard to appeal number 2, would uphold the decision of the hearing officer, but suspend that on the basis that the student would meet the following conditions: that the student would remain out of the homeschool suspended for the remainder of this school year, 22-23. The student be granted access through Google Classroom to submit required assignments during the period of suspension for the remainder of the year. That the student would be required to contact administration at the home school to arrange times for the taking of tests or final exams, if any, that any tests, exams, or assignments not completed would receive no grade credit. Student is not to return to campus or any campuses during the period of suspension without authorization of the school administrator. Again, I so move that this be offered as an alternative, but if this alternative is not accepted, then the decision of the hearing officer would be reinstated as has been stated. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any questions? Hearing none, those in favor would please say aye. Aye. And opposed likewise. And then finally, with regard to student number 4, would move that the decision of the hearing officer would be affirmed but suspended if the student elects the following as an alternative, and if not, the decision of the hearing officer would be reinstated. So the decision would be suspended if the student remains suspended out of school for the remainder of the school year 22-23. Student would be allowed access to Google Classroom to submit any required assignments during the period of suspension. Student would be required to contact a school administrator at the home school to arrange time to take final exams and testing for each course, and any not completed would receive a grade of 0. Student would not be allowed on any campus of Florence 1 schools without authorization of a school administrator. And for this student, this student would be required to show evidence of enrollment in and participation in Circle Park counseling program with verification provided to the homeschool principal on or before June 1, 2023. I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
That's moved and seconded. Unless there's any questions or discussion, those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise. Thank you. That concludes the issues that were taken before the board in exec session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Moved and seconded. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you.